Ladies, if you're feeling tired, inflamed, bloated, wired but tired, resentful, it might not be because you are highly stressed. It's probably because you're living in your masculine energy 24/7. Living in your masculine energy 24/7 is destroying your hormones. And I'm going to break down why in this episode. Trust me, I've been there. I totally get it. So, little disclaimer here. Yes, I am a physician assistant, but this is not medical advice. This is for educational purposes only. Please consult with your doctor before making any hormonal changes. Okay, so first off, I want to start by saying that both men and women both have masculine and feminine energies, and that is okay. It's more so about figuring out the best way to utilize both of them. Trust me, I have been there. I am a physician assistant. I have been in healthcare since I was 16 years old, and I also lived in a period of time where I was constantly productive, constantly going. I did not know how to shut that off. I did not know how to step out of my masculine energy and into my feminine energy. And what that created was absolute hormonal chaos for me. I was having regular acne, bloating, and I was also having a lot of menstrual cycle issues. So every month my menstrual cycle was getting longer, my PMS was getting more intense, and my menstrual cycle just sucked, to be honest. All right, so what does living in your masculine energy look like for modern women? This means you are constantly doing, constantly achieving, always performing, and being highly productive. Now, this is not to say a feminine woman shouldn't be productive. Absolutely, you can. But it's about figuring out that balance. If you are constantly overtraining, overworking, running yourself into the ground, overscheduling yourself, you have a focus on hyper perfection and control in every aspect of your life. You're not allowing yourself to receive any support. You're not resting. You're not asking for help when you need it. The problem that we see with this is that you are constantly living in fight or flight. And I'm going to break down today what that means for your hormones, especially your cortisol and your sex hormones. You are living in the state of always thinking, how can I get more done? What else can I do to be productive today? And that is absolutely driving your cortisol through the roof. Okay, so besides living in that fight or flight state, you have your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. We need both of those to work. So sympathetic nervous system, that is going to be your go, drive, get things done in more of a stress state response, which you should be in for short, acute periods of your day, potentially. You should not be living in that 24/7. If you are living in that state 24/7, you will absolutely notice that your sleep sucks. You might not be able to fall asleep. You probably aren't able to stay asleep. And you live in this constant state of irritability. Okay, so in a woman, really in anyone, what should be happening is you sleep well, ideally. You wake up first thing in the morning and your cortisol spikes. So your cortisol is supposed to spike in the morning, not too high, but you are supposed to have a cortisol awakening response. This gets you up, this gets you going in the morning, and then basically throughout the day, your cortisol should start to fall. If you are living in a state of constantly being stressed all throughout your day, or especially before bedtime, you are going to have those cortisol spikes later in the day. You're going to have those cortisol spikes before bed and potentially as you are trying to rest. What does this create in the body? This leads to inflammation. One of the biggest issues I see with women that comes to me, carrying excess weight, feeling very heavy, feeling inflamed, feeling bloated, because your body is just in that stress state at all times. It can't detox any of these inflammatory molecules. You're also going to have blood sugar dysregulation when your cortisol is constantly spiking. Your body is not focusing on digesting when you're in that cortisol response. So again, this means that your blood sugar is not going to be regulated in the way that it should. So the same foods that you may eat when you are not stressed, for example, will affect your body differently than when you are stressed. The other thing too is with that blood sugar dysregulation, you're going to have a lot more cravings. So you're actually already going to be eating worse. So it's just this really bad cycle that continues to fuel itself. And I kind of already mentioned the sleep issues. If your cortisol spikes before bed, you may have noticed this before. Something highly stressful happens right before you're ready to go to sleep. You probably can't fall asleep. And even if you do, you're probably going to have restless sleep. I've experienced this time and time again. And I'm going to break down a little bit more as we go on how you can fix these things. Okay, so what's the next thing that happens when your cortisol is dysregulated? I like to call this cortisol steal. So cortisol is in the same pathway as your hormone progesterone. This is absolutely vital to understand. So testosterone, estrogen, those hormones get all the hype. But most people don't really hear too much about progesterone, which is one of the most important hormones if you are trying to regulate your cycle, if you're trying to sleep, if you're trying to work on your PMS or your anxiety. So when your cortisol is high, and it's high more often than it should be, it is going to steal from your progesterone. That means that your progesterone will be lower than it should be. Okay, so progesterone is a hormone that is produced in the second half of your menstrual cycle. So you will have progesterone after you ovulate. This should be occurring between days 14 and say 28 of your cycle. So with progesterone, it's going to help you sleep. It's going to improve your anxiety. It can also, if it's low, you will have worsening PMS. So when your cortisol is stealing from your progesterone, we're going to notice the opposite things with this. We're going to notice that your cycle is extended. Your cycle is longer than it should be. This is what was happening to me when I was highly stressed, running myself into the ground, working long hours at the hospital. Instead of my cycle being the normal 28 to 31 days, something like that, it would extend to 40 days, 45 days. 60 days, potentially longer, because I was not having that sufficient amount of progesterone, so my cycle was extending. So you're going to have irregular cycles, extended cycles. You can notice that you have a lot of spotting prior to your menstrual period actually coming. You will notice that your PMS is worse. You will notice that your mood is terrible. You're highly irritable. You are anxious. You could also notice the opposite in that your cycle shortens. So because you're not having that progesterone spike after your ovulation, your cycle will actually shorten, and you could have cycles that are only 15, 20, 22 days when they should really be closer to that 28 day. Okay, so then from your progesterone, what's going to happen after that? You're going to have thyroid dysregulation. So a lot of us, kind of heard about maybe what the thyroid does. Maybe you gain weight, maybe you're sluggish, you're tired, but thyroid does a lot. It completely controls your metabolism, and it links very closely to your sex hormones as well too. So when your cortisol is constantly spiking, when your stress is through the roof, when you are living in that go masculine energy all the time, it will also downregulate your thyroid, just like it downregulated your progesterone. So when you downregulate your thyroid, your metabolism will slow down. You will probably gain weight. You will notice that you're constipated. You have dry skin, dry hair, feel very fatigued, very sluggish. You might have that midday crash, and you feel like crap. So then that triggers you to then push even harder, and you're further pushing yourself into this cycle. Next thing we are going to notice down the line is you're going to notice that you have gut issues 100%. Okay. Stress is the number one thing that affects your gut. People come to me, they say, oh, I have issues with eggs. I have issues with whey protein or gluten. You might, yeah, but also at the end of the day, majority of the time, what's affecting your gut more than any singular food is the fact that you are overly stressed. Okay. If your cortisol is through the roof all times of the day, your gut will 100% be impacted. The time that you are supposed to be digesting is when you are in that rest and digest state, that parasympathetic state. And if you are constantly in the opposite side of that, sympathetic, you are never giving your gut the adequate time to rest and digest. Okay. So what are you going to notice with this? Increased bloating, constipation. You're going to notice that you have a lot more food intolerances. So if you have a long list of foods that you feel like you can't eat, it's probably not those particular foods. It is that your gut is in a really poor spot, likely from high amounts of stress on the body. Okay, and we already kind of talked about the hormone impact that you're going to have as far as your progesterone being low. Your other hormones are going to be impacted too, right? So you've probably heard about potentially the balance of progesterone and estrogen. Obviously, if your progesterone is going down, that's going to cause an imbalance between your two most important hormones, estrogen and progesterone. But what we also see is as that progesterone is coming down, you're going to notice that your estrogen will actually raise. So it creates an even more imbalanced state with your hormones. So as your estrogen rises, that's what we call estrogen dominance. This is going to happen when you have gut issues, when you're highly stressed, when you have liver dysfunction. With this estrogen dominance, some things you could notice with that: a lot of bloating, water weight. You're feeling very, very highly emotional, especially around time of the month. You can notice very tender breasts, especially before your period. You also can notice that you have a lot of acne, a lot of mood swings. All these symptoms kind of tie together, right? Another thing that you may notice that goes along with this increased stress state is almost like PCOS symptoms, where you have these elevated androgen levels, elevated testosterone. Yes, women need testosterone. We don't want it too high. We don't want it too low either. But when you are living in this constant stress state of high amounts of inflammation, dysregulated blood sugar, what you will find is that your testosterone starts to raise. So you might notice a lot more acne. You might notice hair growth in areas you definitely don't want it. You could notice hair loss on your head, and you could notice even more mood and irritability. So just to summarize here, all of these hormonal issues can be linked together, and they are absolutely related to your lifestyle. So I want you to feel empowered by this video to know that there are ways we can work on this. It doesn't just mean your hormones are broken and that's the way they are. There are 100% things that we can do, energies we can shift to move from our masculine go, 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 sympathetic, cortisol-driven drive to our softer, feminine energy, relaxing when we need it, and just leaning into those hormonal shifts that are appropriate for our body. Okay, so how does us leaning into our feminine energy actually help our hormones? Well, I mean, if you think about it, our female hormones are set up to fluctuate in a certain way, and that's okay. If you go on hormonal birth control, that is shutting down your natural hormone production, and that's a different story, right? More so, I am talking about someone that is naturally cycling. And of course, you can follow a lot of these tips if you're on hormonal birth control. But keep in mind, these fluctuations that you have through the month that we need to embrace, that are beautiful, that can be absolutely enlightening if we allow them to be, are from natural cycling hormones. So when we lean more into our feminine energy, we are focusing on receiving. We are focusing on softening and softness. We are focusing on resting. We are focusing on allowing certain things to happen without us needing hyper-focused control on every aspect of life. And I always tell people, you do need a balance between the two, right? So I'm going to utilize my masculine energy a bit more in the workplace. But then when I come home and I'm ready to relax and rest for the day, I don't need to be in that go, go, go masculine energy anymore. I can relax into my softness. That is okay. That does not mean you are failing yourself. That does not mean that you are not productive. So as we lean more into our feminine energy and we soften a bit and we allow ourselves rest, this will lower your cortisol, as you could probably guess from how this episode has been going. So as we lower our cortisol, we will notice that, yes, you still will have that cortisol spike in the morning as appropriate, but you won't be having those cortisol spikes all throughout the day and before bedtime. That's going to create poor sleep, imbalanced blood sugar, poor moods, okay? The biggest thing that we are going to notice with this too is as we start to lower our cortisol and as we start to figure out how to genuinely relax, we will notice that our progesterone will start producing again. Our progesterone will be at adequate levels. So our cycles may become more regular. We may notice that our PMS, our irritability, is a lot better. Okay. This is highly, highly vital. Again, we're going to hear about testosterone, estrogen, that these are the most important hormones, but you need progesterone. Okay. And especially if you are someone that wants to have children in the future, or you already have children and you are concerned about fertility, we need sufficient progesterone levels. When you move more into your feminine energy, you are going to be activating that parasympathetic nervous system. So, I was mentioning that when you're more so in your masculine energy, it's going to be sympathetically driven. It's going to be about productivity. Parasympathetic is rest and digest. Parasympathetic is rest and allow yourself to recover. We need those times in order for our gut to heal, in order for our hormones to regulate. Moving into your feminine energy is just overall going to sync better with the natural female hormone rhythm. So you may notice that in the first half of your cycle, the follicular phase, you are okay to keep going. You have higher estrogen levels at that point. Your testosterone is a little bit higher. You can handle a bit more stress during that time frame. But your luteal phase, so the 2 weeks leading up prior to your period, you might not be able to handle as much stress. You may need to sleep more. You may need to relax and recover more. And that is okay. That goes along with our natural female hormone rhythm. When you lean into your feminine energy, you're also going to create more safety in the body. Okay. So when you feel safe, you can produce even more. So if you feel that your productivity is going to decrease as a result of not living in this masculine go energy, it's actually the opposite. Because when you don't feel safe, you are not going to produce as a woman. When you don't feel safe, you are not going to be happy as a woman. Leaning into safety will allow all other aspects of your life to be so much more enhanced. When you feel safe as a woman, this is when the inflammation will actually decrease. This is when you will notice, oh, my metabolism is actually better. I can eat more foods. I can digest foods better, and they're not going solely to fat gain. Okay, so all this sounds well and great, but what can we do about it? How can we actually make this shift from being in that masculine go energy to our feminine, soft, relaxed state? So these are some actionable steps I want you to try today. Okay, so I want you to focus on doing less, but better. Okay, so I have so many women that come to me. They work out 6-7 times a week, multiple times a day, and they're wondering why they never make progress. We want to focus on quality over quantity. You could work out 3 to 4 times a week and make even more progress if you are allowing yourself those days to rest. You focus on the quality workouts. You don't need to be training yourself every single day and driving yourself into this increased stress state. You also need to focus on your workouts being for lifting and building muscle rather than punishment. If you are focusing your workouts on punishing yourself, that is not going to produce any results, and you are absolutely not going to give yourself any time to recover. Second thing I want you to work on is asking for and receiving support. So this may especially look like asking for support from your masculine partner. They are not going to have as many of the hormonal fluctuations as we have, and that is okay. That is not a bad thing. Our hormones are structured differently. So especially during the time of the month, luteal phase, PMS, or menstrual period, it is okay to lean on others for support. And it is also okay to just let others be. Okay, so this is just a kind of personal example as far as things that I have done. So my husband and I work together. We own a business together. In the past, I would feel this need to hyper control situations. I would feel the need to be involved in all the decision making he is doing for the business, because I thought that was me being a good partner, a good leader for our business. But really, that was just making me absolutely crazy and driving me into this masculine energy, which was creating even more stress for the both of us. So yes, absolutely, we chat with each other. We make decisions together on really big things. But if there is something that I know that he can handle, I let him handle it. I don't need to be involved in all of those decisions. And that's okay. And especially during certain times of the month, if I'm just not feeling up to it and I say, are you cool with handling this? Or, just giving him certain tasks that I know that he can handle that could take it off of our plate, I let him do it. And I do not need to be involved with all of that. Okay, third thing is, obviously this is schedule related, but you need to build rest into your day just like you would anything else. You structure your workouts. You plan, obviously, your work schedule. You plan when you're going to pick up the kids or go to a family event or whatever. You do need to also structure that time into your day when you are resting. True downtime, okay? And this is going to look different for everyone. A lot of people that come to me, a lot of women that are in this go state, they see downtime as doing even more productive stuff. So this is obviously counterproductive, right? So if you are truly trying to rest and truly trying to move into that recovery state, that doesn't mean you need to be in a productive recovery state. This means you can chill out and take a bath. This means you can just go on a long walk out in nature. Nature is very, very helpful for actually moving into that rested state. Going out in the sun, that can be also very helpful. Very light yoga, again, moving into like hot yoga and strenuous workouts, HIIT workouts, that is obviously not rest for your body. Okay. So building that rest time into your day is absolutely vital. So fourth thing here, we want to eat to support our feminine hormones. So there are certain things that you can do. These little hacks actually work. So as a female, when we are supporting our hormones, a few things we need to do. We need to ensure we're eating adequate, healthy fats. So avocados, nut butters, maybe even grass-fed butter. This can be very highly beneficial to support your hormones. This is going to stabilize your blood sugar if you're eating healthy fats with your meals. Okay. A little tip that I've been doing a lot recently that has been helpful is eating more warming foods. If you especially have thyroid issues and you are very cold all the time, the last thing you want to be doing is eating all these cold foods, salads, smoothies, things like that. So try adding in more warming foods to your diet. Soups, bone broths, things like that can be very highly beneficial for your gut, but also your hormones too. Fifth thing is you need to work to regulate your stress and your cortisol. You can be doing all these little hacks, but if you have extreme amounts of stress from work, extreme amounts of stress from relationships, and you don't know how to manage that, you don't know how to set your boundaries, none of this will matter. We all know that, you could lay down and put your head on the pillow at night. And if you have that one thing that's ruminating in your mind, whether it's a conversation you need to have, whether it's an argument with your partner, whatever it may be, everything else in the world could be perfect. But we all know as women, that is what's going to take over our brain. So actually working on those biggest things that's causing stress in your body. I always tell my clients, you have one stress bucket. Your body is not going to recognize the difference between stress from work, stress from relationships, stress from overtraining, stress from undereating. They all fall into one stress bucket. So if you can work on reducing some of it, your stress will improve, even if not all areas are absolutely perfect. Okay, sixth tip here, and this is probably my favorite one, is actually embrace doing something girly. Go get your nails done, go shopping, go, decorate for Christmas, whatever it is that makes you feel happy. I love baking my sourdough, and that is my time that I'm just doing a kind of mindless, fun activity that just feels girly to me. And it helps me relax. And is it hyper productive to be spending hours making sourdough? No, but it's what makes me happy, and it makes me feel feminine. And that is okay if you just embrace those types of activities. Not everything needs to be done out of productivity and moving the ball forward. Okay, so hopefully some of those tips helped you out today. Just a reminder that your hormones will thrive as a woman when you are living in your feminine energy. And that does not mean you need to be in your softened feminine energy at all times. It means you need to know when to relax into it when your body needs it. So if this resonated, share it with someone, save it, and you can always contact me on Instagram if you have any more questions or if you need any further guidance in how to support your hormones naturally. Thanks so much.